So we do deep dives on many things. We've isolated these three that we're going to talk about now, just to give you a flavor for what we think are some fundamentals. We believe that it is impossible to have a conversation about expanding opportunity for all, no matter who we are or where we come from, without talking about power. We certainly cannot talk about creating more equitable outcomes in education, health, environment, or whatever it is we care about, without considering power and the necessity for there to be shifts in the way that we use power to expand opportunity for all. On this one slide, I have done 4-hour sessions with foundation leaders and board members. I'm not going to do that to you now. I'm going to give it to you in 4 minutes. And the main point that I wish to offer from this slide is the following, and then I'm going to work our way through. That the highest dimension of diversity, equity, and inclusion is found at the top, where people in power decide to prioritize 3 things. And if anybody's taking notes, these are the 3 that we'll reference over and over again as much as we can. When leaders are using power and setting priorities to make shifts in 3 areas, we believe there is real change. The first area is the way that people in power use message. How do they convey the why of inclusion? Who are the messengers? Are the messengers the people only at the lowest level saying this is important? Or are the messengers the people at the highest level who set the tone, who send a signal about what matters among all of the other things that matter in the world? So if the president of FIU says, we care about belonging, and we're going to do what we can to create an environment where that happens, how much you want to bet that the deans and all of the administrators are thinking more about that than if that president was not articulating that as a goal? So message. The second priority that we believe matters a whole lot, won't surprise you, it's money. Are people in power deciding to allocate money, financial resources, to support the goals that we articulate? And then the third, my favorite, people. Are we giving responsibility and accountability to the people in power who control the message and the money? Are we giving those people the resources, and are we holding them accountable for doing what they can to have different outcomes? That's the highest manifestation. So this is about leading. Our wish is that every leader, wherever they sit, is asking themselves this question: how do I shift the way that I message, the way that I allocate money, and the way that I resource people to these goals that we're talking about? So I'm going to go from that top one to the bottom one. The bottom one makes me very sad. It's the tiniest part of the pyramid. It makes me sad because it's about representation. It makes me sad because for most of us, in any organization that says we are advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, that we are expanding opportunities for all, we start and end with representation. We're going to have more bodies, more people of different identities engaged, either in the leadership team, in the people team, among the partners that we work with, sometimes even for the customers that we're serving. We're just going to have more diversity. And we think that by having that diversity, that gets us to the top of that pyramid. It doesn't. It's a starting place, because by having more diversity of perspectives and lived experiences, all of the research tells us that we get better outcomes. How many of you have heard the research that says a well-managed organization that is homogeneous does less well than a diverse team that's not so well managed? In other words, the diversity is a strength unto itself because you have perspectives that allow the team to problem solve, to issue spot, to ask questions that otherwise would not get answered. Why? Because of what Chris said. Because we're mostly coming from our own perspectives, our own lived experiences. So then that gets us to the middle part, which is let's start with having more diversity of bodies, of people with all kinds of different experiences, identities, perspectives. And let's see if the mindset that we've talked about can influence the decision making so that the perspectives are shared. Even if the people in power who control the money and the resources and the people are not in the room, can we have a diversity of perspectives that's going to help us achieve the goals that we want? Footnote, FIU. You don't need to have a completely diverse universe to move. You don't have to wait until you have total diversity of perspectives and people before we can move. It just takes each of us as individuals deciding how we can move with intentionality from where we sit to achieve more opportunity for all. Otherwise, we're paralyzed. It's not a good look. It's not a good feel. Okay? And that's about diversity at the bottom, inclusion, and as I've mentioned before, ultimately, it's the choices that we make as individuals and also people in power that allows us to have change at scale. And as leaders, of course, that's what we're always talking about.